Hello and welcome to Bergen Stage's Television, our entertainment magazine here at Bergen Community College. I'm Jim Bumgardner, your host. Obviously, we're doing the show a little differently. We're doing it virtually because that's the world we're living in now. But still, I need to thank everybody at Media Technologies, Mary Ann Coe, Jim Quimby, and the gang at Media Technologies for making this happen today, because we've got such a great show for you and we couldn't wait to get back to be able to talk about it. And that great show is bringing our sound designer, audio engineer, Dean Matson, to the show to talk about him, how you become a sound engineer, and what we're doing here at Bergen Community College now with his talents. So please join me in welcoming Dean Matson to the show. So Dean, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's about time. Dean, you've been working at the college for quite a number of years, 15, 20.
Probably about close to 25 years started because we started doing your graduation ceremonies.
Oh my goodness.
That's how I got introduced to Bergen College and the theater program and everything. So.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that you'd come back and did that kind of technology as well there. Oh, cool. Great. But I think your first show was maybe like Elephant Man or something like that.
My first sound design show was Elephant Man. Yep.
Great. Wow. Yeah, that was a few years ago too.
That was a bunch of years ago.
So before we get into talking about the college itself and what you've been doing for us, all these wonderful things you've been doing at the college, let's talk about you just a little bit. Who's Dean Matson? You're a sound engineer. What sparked your interest in the sound engineering? Where did you get your beginnings with all this?
I started out, I wanted to be a drummer in a rock band. And through that process of doing some recordings with a friend of mine who's a keyboard player, we rented some recording gear from this company, Banana Sound, who I currently work for as well. And I just got interested in the technology and the process of recording. And then I started that was what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do it in a live environment just because I think live is so vibrant and exciting and it's in the moment and so I got a job at Banana Sound. He hired me and we started doing shows, and I just from there I took it from there and been doing it.
So was it straight out of high school? You went right to work, or
a couple years out of high school. I was 20 when I got into it and started working for Banana Sound. Yep.
And you're from the area.
I'm from Massachusetts. I'm from outside of Boston.
Uh-huh.
And I moved here. I moved to New Jersey when I got out of high school, right out of high school, and worked in another trade, in the machine shop trade. But when I got solved the recording technology and all this other stuff, I was like, this is awesome. So that's where I went from there.
It's quite a world that you work in, just working in technology. I know that some of our students are interested in sound design. I think it's one of the most overlooked part of a theatrical production. I think it's always like, okay, put mics on them, let's go. As opposed to, there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of planning. As much as building that set and hanging the lights, the sound designer needs much more time in the theater and with their actors and with the directors and everybody like that. So what would you, to encourage a sound design student or someone interested in, what would you tell them to do to get a career in sound?
Well, I guess what one thing that I would encourage, if someone is interested in sound design, is to, especially now with the days of the internet, and just try to absorb as much material as you can. Go see shows, listen to what, any show. Could be Broadway, could be a local production, a theater production, and just try to meet people who are kind of in the business, whether you go up in between, acts and say, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm interested. How did you, and really this business, sound design, or just the audio entertainment business in general, is about just meeting people and making contacts. And between that and when you do, try to find, work doing that, just keep your ears and eyes open and take in what's going on and what people are doing.
Cool.
And
so it sounds like an apprenticeship would be a great, or an internship or something like that, to work underneath someone to learn from them is a great way to learn a lot about this industry.
Yeah, there
And
is.
it's constantly changing too. So it's like keeping on top of the new technology has got to be
It
insane.
is. There's definitely a lot happening, and especially in the last 10 years when it comes to audio, technology. Mixing consoles have gone from analog to digital. A lot of the stuff between having a computer and a little digital mixer, it's pretty much the brains of the operation. All your playback and effects are done on a computer, as opposed to years ago where it was CD players and mini disc, and you had to have a stack of them, and even going back further, reel to reels and cassettes, and
Yeah. Or go back even further where they were off stage making the
exactly.
noises off stage with
Yep.
a Foley table and
Yep.
making that happen like that. That's cool.
Exactly.
So great. So I think it's a great career, and you've had a pretty cool career. You've been working with a few bands. So you started working at Banana Sound, and you continue to work at Banana Sound.
Right.
But then you went off and did some other things too. Yeah.
Well, the short story is I got involved with a club in New York City called Wetlands,
Oh,
and
sure. Mhm.
Wetlands was a 7-night-a-week live music venue. Every single night there was live music, and it was a very eclectic range of music they had, from reggae to rock and roll to funk, folk. And through that process, I ended up meeting a few people, and I finally got involved with the band Yes. If whoever remembers and knows Yes, 70s progressive rock band. And it was always one of my dreams to tour, to be in the touring business. And when I hooked up with Yes, they hired me to mix monitors for the band, and they took me on the road and tour with them as their monitor engineer for a tour we did with Peter Frampton.
Can I stop you there before you continue that?
Yeah.
So when we talk about mixing monitors, that means there's several different sound people involved in this show, not just one person doing it all.
Yeah, in the bigger, live music productions, you have at least 2 engineers, one who mixes what the audience hears,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's an engineer who mixes just what the band hears, because the band needs to be able to hear each other themselves in order for them to play with each other. They need to hear each other.
So for Yes, you did the band hearing themselves part
I
of
did
it.
the band, yes, on stage for that. And then,
Okay.
yeah. And so eventually I was moved to the front, what they call front of house audio, which is what the audience hears when you go see a show. And I've been working with them for 10 years now as their front of house engineer.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you went on tour.
I went on tour.
Where did you go?
All over the place. Well, the first tour was just in the States, in America.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had never toured before. So I didn't know if it was like, well, they just hired me for the tour and then they have somebody else. And no, they wanted me back. The next tour was South America in November.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was Europe after that. And then we went to Australia, Indonesia, Japan was the next leg of the tour. And so, yeah, we've been to those places 3-4 times already.
Wasn't there a cruise ship involved too?
Yes, there was. The band, a promoter had hired the band. They do their own cruise called Cruise to the Edge. We're the headliners, but there's 20 other progressive rock bands that play throughout the ship over a period of 5 days. And that's always an interesting challenge just in and of itself when it comes to just production. And now with everything else going on, that all got canceled for now. But yeah, we did that for 6 years going on that.
I love that you said for now. I know that we're going to be back at it. It's slowly going to creep in and we'll be back at it. So and the interesting part is that you did go out on tour, and now for 10 years. So what advice do you have about going on tour? Because a lot of people that are going to get involved in sound design and sound engineering will go on tour. What kind of advice do you have for anyone that's going out on tour?
My advice would be to make sure it's really what you want to do, because it's a different way of living for 2, 3, 4 months, however long you're out, and the people who you work with are your family for that amount of time. You see them every single day. You're on the bus with them every single night and in the morning, and you have to interact, and you're away from your loved ones. And it's, it's easier now to keep in touch with them, but still you're away, and there might be days where you don't see them or talk to them. So it's a tough lifestyle, but if you think you can handle it, it's really wonderful. You get to see different places. You get to just go and experience just other people, how people do things in the business, and you learn so much. Like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, that's a good way of, So it's just really,
and continue to make connections in different venues too. I assume that you're able to meet people and connect with them.
Yeah, I've met so many people, and you stay in touch with them, and then through that, when one tour ends, other people, they call, oh, because the tour just stopped. I was wondering if you had any other work, and because touring is only a finite amount of time, and in between tours, it helps to have work. So the more connections you make, the more chances you have of working, whether it's locally in where you live or going on another tour.
So in doing a live performance, what is your job to do? What do you do when comes to New York City and you're in a great big venue? What do you do?
I set up all our audio equipment. We travel with most of our own mixing consoles and microphones and everything. So I make sure all that gets set up properly. All the mics get set up the way I want them plugged in, and then we check them during the day. We make sure the mics work. Sometimes the band will come in for a sound check. Sometimes they won't. So we just have to make sure everything works. Mm-hmm. And then after that, when the show starts, I'm responsible for mixing the show, make sure that the show is heard properly for the audience and all that. And at the end of the night, we just pack it all up, put it on the truck, and go to the next town.
And it changes from place to place that you go to then. I assume that you can't just say, oh, I had it on 8 for this one, so it's going to be on 8 for the next one. Because
because the biggest challenge is you're in different types of rooms every day. One room sounds one way today, and tomorrow you're in an entirely different room. It could be a theater. It could be just an arena at a casino. It could be an outdoor venue like PNC Art Center. Every time it changes, and every time you're in a different venue, you have to make adjustments to the overall volume of the show and how something sounds. You might use more reverb outdoors. You might use less indoors because the room has natural reverb in it in a lot of places. So you don't want to saturate and muddy up the mix, that kind of thing. So a lot of things to take into consideration on a day by day place.
Cool. And you obviously love doing live work. Do you do studio work as well, recording in the studio?
Actually lately, since the pandemic has hit, I have built this studio and trying to expand on it, and have been trying to do some more studio work. I've been trying to mix, because we record a lot of the Yes shows multi-track. So I'm trying to work on some songs with that and build upon where I can maybe have bands and stuff. But more recently have been doing some studio stuff. Yep.
So the learning curve keeps going. So what you've learned out on the road is really different than what you do in a studio. It's still a mixing board and all that, but you're really a whole different area.
It is. It's a different environment. It's a different way of doing things. A lot of the things do transfer from live to the studio. There are certain things you have a lot more flexibility in the studio because you have more time to play around with the way things sound and that kind of thing, how you want to make the mix adjust. So, but it's a big learning curve, but I like it, and the stuff that you learn in the studio, a lot of the things I can take back when I go out on the road, because there are a lot of the techniques that I'm learning in the studio that I'm going, oh, I could do this on the show. This would be cool. And so it's back and forth.
And I think at Bergen, that's what we've tapped in, is the stuff that you can do in the studio that you bring to a live theater, which is an interesting thing. So, Dean, this is just so fascinating. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to talk about what you've done at the college and what we're doing now with our Bergen Stages Radio Theater. Everybody, we're going to take a very short break, and we're going to come back and talk to Dean more about what's going on at Bergen Community College and what Dean has been doing for our theater group. All right, come right back.
Okay.
Hello and welcome back to Bergen Stages Television, our entertainment magazine here at Bergen Community College. Obviously, we're coming to you virtually today with our wonderful guest, Dean Mattson. And Dean and I have been chit-chatting a little bit about your past career, becoming an audio engineer, working with Banana Sound, and also working with the band Yes, going out on national tour. But now I kind of want to bring it home to Bergen Community College. And like you said, you worked with Banana Sound, you brought over sound equipment and things for our graduation many years ago. But more for, I'm going to be very selfish, more for Bergen Stages, we were able to get you to do some sound design for us. And what different than what you do for a band, what have you had to do as a sound designer for a play?
Well, I have to be honest with you. When I was first asked to do a show, sound design show, I had never done sound for theater. It had always either been for bands or spoken word, but there's a different mindset when it comes to sound design for theater, because now you're dealing with a lot of sound effects. You're dealing with, interacting between recorded music and live, actors and stuff. And it's really a whole different way. It's really something that makes you push your brain to go, oh, how do I do this now? I just can't, do what I used to do. I have to find a way of doing it. And it's just really been such a great experience doing that. And then doing it with Bergen Stages has just been a great experience.
So yeah, I mean, you've done our musicals. I think Godspell was the first one you and I did musical wise. You've done musicals, so I assume that's more like doing a live concert because you're mixing the mics and all that kind of stuff.
In some respects, yeah.
Yeah, and so, in the theater itself. But when I want to kind of tackle into the plays that you've been doing, because I think that's been a challenge, trying to find the right effect, working with different directors on. I guess the director, and I know what I'm hearing. I need you to know what I'm hearing so that you can produce that. So let's just go to the most recent one. You did Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
And there was a lot of sound design in that. I think you were busier than the actors were in this one.
That was a great show, and it came out really well. And the trick of doing that is trying to listen to what the director is looking for, what the script is calling for, and how you interpret those two things. And you have to come out with something that makes sense. And a lot of the stuff that I did, like a mechanical dog effect, for example, because there's a mechanical dog, I just took a sound of a dog and you add some effects and you change the pitch, and then you can change the way the dog sounds. Now it sounds different than a organic dog. And the music, a lot of the music that comes into play, in between scenes, and sometimes you need to set a mood into the next scene, maybe, or maybe you're trying to extend on the mood of the scene that just happened. There's a lot of different ways you can look at doing sound design for that type of work.
And I think you have a picture of your control board that you can work on with these kind of things. Yeah.
I do, yes.
So as they're looking at this control board, these are the kind of knobs that you turn and make these kind of effects happen along the way there.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yep.
But one thing I love what you do that people probably don't realize is the research that you do just for the period of the play. So if it was music and you wanted a harpsichord, you would find the famous harpsichord player from Italy at that period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a couple period pieces. Enemy of the People is one that came out. It was a Norwegian play that was set in 1800s.
Late 1800s, yeah.
So I researched Norwegian composers who composed music in that time and try to utilize it in that play. So it kind of gives the play a little more authentic depth and try to put you more as much in the period as you can get.
It does. And this is now a chance to tell people, listen for that sort of thing, because those things are going on. Yeah. And I know you know it, and I know it, and the director knows it, but a lot of times the audience just it's there, but it's not
Yeah.
something that's been significant. And it should be significant, and you've made it so. And I as a producer, I totally appreciate that you've taken that time and energy to make that happen. I think that's so cool. So what's some of the most challenging effects that you've had to do, like the mechanical dog you're talking about?
Yeah, that was probably one of the more challenging ones. There's some other sometimes a lot. Oh, we did Angels in America. Okay, and I had to make a meteor crash from behind the theater, and to make it sound like the meteor was coming from behind the audience and crashing onto the stage. So I had to set up a kind of a surround system in the theater and have the track play as a surround track, so it would sound like it was coming from behind everybody. That was fairly challenging. It took a bit because you got to time it right. You want to make sure it actually sounds like it's moving and not just
And when
appearing
it works,
behind.
it freaks the audience out because it's like coming, where's it coming from? Everybody's looking all over the place for it. I think that's such a cool kind of effect to do when we have the opportunity. Not every show, of course, calls for it.
Yeah.
Some are probably simple. They're just kind of like, between scene music and maybe a phone ringing, and that's most of the effects. And then some, like Fahrenheit, was just nonstop sound effects and recording and all these kind of stuff. So that's fascinating. But currently we're actually working on a radio show. And I'm proud to say that we have been working on this with Mary Ann Coe, our producer for Bergen Stages Television, as well on this show. It's been a lot of fun. We started, as soon as this pandemic happened, we came up with this idea and started. I think our first episode was towards the end of May. And to date, I think we've done 22 episodes of Bergen Stages Radio Theater, which is available on YouTube. And we keep churning them out. And it's been a lot of fun. These are a bunch of old radio shows that I have found through research, and then working with you, Dean, to make sound effects. If this were done, a lot of these are from the 30s and 40s. Had they been done in the radio's theater, they would have had that Foley table where somebody's making the sounds right then. But we're in this world of WebEx and Zoom to be able to do it. So you've been able to take our recording of it, right? So just I kind of walk us through the process of what we do each time. I pick a script, I send you the script, I get the actors, and then we meet in a virtual world and we start reading. And then what do you do?
And then everything gets recorded from the meeting. The whole thing, some people go over lines again and that kind of thing. But then once that's finished, I go back, and one of the first things I do is edit the dialogue so that it flows. There's no mistakes. When they flub a line or something, I cut that out and splice it back together again.
Great. So let me interrupt you there, because I think you got a video about the splicing thing that we do. Because as people know, if they've done any of these Zoom or WebEx kind of things, there's always sometimes a lag or a burp or a hesitation. And you found a way to fix it. So we're going to just jump to this. Do you want to do a little setup before we watch this video, or you want to go right to it?
No, I mean, this is basically just how I edit out any spaces in between the internet catching up with what's spoken. And sometimes there's a second or two that is not there, but then it reappears, and I can take out that gap and make a word out of it. So that's basically. So
let's just take a moment and just watch a little bit of this video of how you edit the sound that we don't even think about needing to do, but we have to in this virtual world. So let's watch this for a moment.
One of the things I wanted to show you, just a little thing. I'm sitting here editing the upcoming play today, which I won't tell you, I won't spoil the surprise, but one of the things I do is I chop up the initial recordings from the computer, because there's sometimes the actors, they flub a line or there's some mistakes made. So one of the things I have to do is I have to go in and cut out all the mistakes and put it all together so it's seamless. And one of the mistakes that nobody really hears except for me is what they call latency in recording over the internet. So what will happen is a line will get cut off, or a word will get cut off in mid-word, but even though it's cut off, the packets, the transmission, the signals that get sent over the internet are still there. So they actually catch up a second or two later. So, for instance, this word "feel" is broken up. As you can see, this this part right here is feel, but there's some lag. So what you hear is,
it's a wonderful way to feel.
So it says it's a wonderful way to feel. So what's going to happen now is I am going to take this and basically move it over so that it becomes more coherent.
It's a wonderful way to feel. It's a wonderful way to feel.
So that's basically part one of my editing process, is getting everything to sound seamless, get rid of little mistakes like that. And yeah, that's part one. After I make sure all that's done, I add in my sound effects, which is all this stuff here. I layer stuff to make I take 2-3 different sound effects and layer them.
So cool, Dean. Again, something we'd never had to think about until we started doing this and realizing, wait, there's lags, there's burps, there's things that the internet does. Something starts whirling. But the beauty is we're not doing this live. Live radio, I cannot imagine how difficult that was to be so prepared for everything that can happen. It's like doing a live concert. You just got to be ready for whatever's going to happen right at that moment. But fortunately, taping, we can go back if an actor has an issue with a line, we can go back and redo the line. If the internet decides to buffer for a moment, we have to stop. I know that one time we were taping and we had one person that was thunderstorming and then it was hailing at another person's, we had all these different issues to have to pause for a moment in the middle of the taping. So yeah, so this setup you have is a way to edit all this. So yeah. It takes a lot of your time, but that's just the dialogue part. So now we've got the dialogue part done, and then what do? So you got everybody's dialogue finished. And again, I don't know that I said this before, we do not put the sound effects as we go along. You go and do this afterwards, the music and the sound effects. You found that easier. Good. Okay. So what happens after that?
So after that, I take the music that you provide that we put in the play, and I research sound effects according to the script and what fits, and then I put that in after the fact. So the music, there's different tracks for music and different tracks for effects and things like that, and I'll take the effects and put them where they need to be, and I can move them around, and then I can take the dialogue and put space in the dialogue if need be, and just do that all the way throughout the whole play. And then
you're able to overlap it where we can't do that in a WebEx Zoom kind of thing. You're able to overlap music or have actors on top of each other, which we can't do because one will cut out the other in this. Which we learned along the way. We've had a learning curve through all this kind of stuff too, but it totally works now. But you've also not just gone on and researched and found these sound effects. You've made a couple of them. A couple of your favorite, I think you got a little clip of, yeah?
Yeah, I did. I was looking for, when we did Frankenstein, I was looking for the footsteps for the monster, and I couldn't find anything that I was hearing, because usually I hear the sound effect in my head before I even go and find it or look for it. And I said, there's nothing out there. So I said, well, I can make my own. And that's what I did.
So let's look at this for 2 seconds here. And another of my favorite, I think that you did was some gunshots.
Stand back, monster. You've breathed your last breath. Die! Die! Why don't you die?
Yes, some gunshots. Because the nice thing about having effects is I can take one single sound and I can make it multiples of, like a gunshot. So I can take one gunshot and I can make it 50 gunshots, 15 seconds in between each shot, or I can make 6 shots like right after the other. I can manipulate the interval and the duration of the sound to fit what we're trying to do in that particular moment.
That's so cool. And then you put it all together at the show. You put all this tape together. We send it off to Marianne Coe, who then adds the video to it. And the rest is history. It becomes a YouTube and goes on the channel, goes on our FiOS TV, Torch TV. So it's got a great life. And we just keep doing it. And we're having fun, which is such a good part to it. Dean, we could probably talk about an hour and 2 hours about all this stuff. But it's just been so great to have you on the show, talking about sound design and that's a great career choice to do. And I think that's a wonderful thing that you've provided for us to say, think about becoming a sound designer, whether for theater or for live concerts. So Thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. And thank you for watching the show. And we will come back again. But in the meantime, don't touch that dial. And if you do, remember to disinfect it first. Thank you again for watching.